Good morning, all participants. So our group B, will be reviewing introduction 2. So based on the reading the introduction to actually quite difficult. It needs several times to understand what the introduction would like to tell us. So the topic of the introduction to is about the environmental perspective of the 15th century in Vietnam. So although this introduction has quite complete component and information that need to be found in the introduction, for example, research topic, research question, and so on. But they, for example, we concern to the first 3 sentences. So the first and the second sentences talking about the Confucius 15th century Vietnam's and the history of 15th century. And then the topic in the third sentence mentioned about environmental perspective of the 15th century Vietnam. So we think that the third sentence come up to sudden. I mean, the previous sentence did not give us a clue about the environmental perspective. So, and then we do not see the research gap in this introduction. The research gap is not clear. What kind of study they want to address in this introduction. And although we can find the research question in this introduction, in the sentence, the paper that examines the established analysis of the 15th century Vietnam with the focus of reference of natural disaster in the century in question. But we're not sure enough that it's really the question. I mean, the whole paragraph itself there is a change. We cannot grasp whether it's kind of historical studies or philosophy studies from the explanation in the introduction. But in the introduction already mentioned a little about the research answer that we can find in the sentence that said also I find that blah 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 blah. And one thing that clearly we can see in the introduction is that it has organizational forecast that we can found with the hint, the present paper will first blah blah blah, and then the next sentence the paper can explain blah blah blah, and then finally, so they give a hint what the reader can expect if they read this paper from this organizational forecast. Okay.
Thank you. I have an idea about the article, but I assume that this article will discuss about the story of environmental disaster or something like this in Vietnam. In the recent gap, maybe if we see the paper in introduction 2 is quite different with the other introduction. we didn't need the citation by name, but I think if we see more deep in this introduction too, we see number with subscribe. I think it's citation.
Actually, no.
No.
No, I would have put them in if this person had been using footnotes. I would have put the footnotes in. The footnotes were explaining further things. And we can talk about the use of footnote later. So, no, the answer is no. You're absolutely right. The source of this information is not actually identified.
Yeah, we didn't find any citation or reference in this article. But first, I assume that the number is citation. It's not citation.
You would have thought that's one of the reasons why I included this. What the person was doing was adding more information about each. I can't even say each study. It may have been each study or each group of studies. I couldn't tell. It's a very, very odd thing to happen.
Yeah, this way we didn't see the research gap here and about the research literature. But the author just said that across disciplinary reading of the scholarship, but he didn't or she didn't mention from what article he or she read.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah. The research gap. Maybe the research gap. The author will discuss about the main problem caused by the disaster. I think from another opinion, the three disaster: tropical cyclone, flood, and monsoon drought. And I think we think that in this article, the author will also didn't exactly literally say what's the research question, because we didn't find the how and why question here. But we assume the research question is we find in sentence 3. This paper examines the rise of 15th century Vietnam, but from the perspective of environmental history. I think this is the research question, and we will find the research answer. The author suggests that two causes, drought and irregular rainfall, caused the disaster in Vietnam, not 3. First, we didn't get the main point in or topic in this article, because we assume it's topic like history or philosophy or like environmental study. We found here that the author mostly said that I write, I argue, and blah blah blah. Yes, the topic is about 15th century in Vietnam. Introduce, use the past tense. Lack of clarity, maybe. Or maybe understanding. Yeah. Okay, I think this for my additional information. Maybe Mr. Alex.
Thank you. Maybe my part is on the language. I found that this introduction number 2 is very well written. Very well written. So I think in terms of grammar, the use of grammar, it's almost free from errors. And then it's I think it's very effective in introducing the parts. So maybe we do not have like markers for to show different parts of the paper, but I think it is implied. So it's more advanced than the other introductions. So if, for example, in introduction 1 we have a lot of errors which confuses us to understand the idea, so it's really disturbed the clarity. But in introduction number 2, we easily understand the idea, it's clear. But maybe the problem as presented by Atika and the other things, it's more on how to grasp what is actually the study about. But I think in my personal opinion, it's about study of the history using the environmental history approach. So, all the elements of these introductions is completely presented. There is questions which is understood from the objectives. So instead of raising questions, this introductions uses the strategy of presenting the objectives. I think research questions and objectives are complementary. We can say what our question is in questions or interrogative sentence, but we can also rephrase it using this paper aims, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Just a couple of things. With regard to the objectives, you stating your objectives versus stating a research question. Actually, the objectives actually belong to your research project, in a sense. I mean, we have objectives for research projects. Generally, the objectives do not go into a research paper. Now, if you're writing a research report on your research, you know, for example, to the funding agency, then of course the objectives, you oftentimes see objectives in a research report. It may be an interim report where you're reporting, well, I've done this so far, I still need to do this because somebody wants to know whether you're on track or not. Or it could be the final report that oftentimes goes to your funding agency. So once again, we will find the objectives in research reports. It's unusual. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's very unusual to find them in research papers, okay, that you put in a journal. So I think the author here was kind of confusing the features of a research report with the features of a research paper. Okay, but your comment is correct, actually. Your analysis is absolutely spot on. From the objectives, we could infer, with a little bit of work, we can infer what the research questions are. The only thing is, and I'm going down on my knees again, everybody, I'm begging, just state the research question. Make it easy for the reader, please. You know, we're all very busy, distracted people, and you know, we're trying to read the literature, we're trying to keep up, but we got like a million things to do in our classrooms. We have administrative duties at the department level, at the faculty level, at the university level. Oh, life is so horrible. You know. So, anyways, you know, basically make it easy for you, make it for your reader. I got a question for you now. There's a very interesting thing here about the use of I in the introduction. Is that right? Is it wrong? What's going on here? You might want to refer back to something that Susan was talking about a little bit earlier. What is it about the use of I? Anybody remember?
Sorry?
I.
Use.
Yes? Yeah, no, yes.
It's better to avoid it if you
I'm sorry, just a little bit louder.
It is probably better being used by established writers.
It tends to be used by established writers and it's less used. It's not a question of right or wrong, but we do see a very definite pattern here where older established writers, not older, it's not about age, but people who have been academics for a longer period of time and who are more established, they tend to use it more than people who are just starting off. That's all we can say. And with regard to the language also, I would just want to point something out here. With regard to the language, the person who wrote this thing, okay, it's a person of Vietnamese origin, but he was, or is rather, he is an American, he is an American who speaks English as a first language, studying at the University of Hawaii. That's why you didn't find any errors. But interestingly, you found a lack of clarity in the thing. So, I mean, my point is, you can speak English as your first language, okay? That you use in society. You can use it. It can be your first language of intellection, how you make sense out of the world, and you still see exactly the same kind of problems that we're seeing among you guys. It's very common, and everybody has to deal with it. Yeah. So, she wants to cut in. Okay.
I have no business.
Oh, you have a business. Everybody has business.
Sometimes people tell me, oh, because he's a native speaker.
Bullshit.
And that's supposed to take care of it. But no, writing really is I would say a skill, but it's not just speaking, especially in English. I don't know about the other languages, okay? But writing is a special skill. It's different from speaking. Okay, so anybody really can learn to write well in English, but you just have to develop it. Okay, you may speak English as your first language, but it doesn't guarantee that you will write right. Serious. Sorry, speaking like no, but see that, because I hear that very often. Oh, because he's a native speaker of English. Really, that doesn't make it. That doesn't guarantee that you will write well. Writing is very, I think, it requires determination, it requires thinking, it requires practice and skill. You keep saying you have to do it. You cannot do it overnight.
Yeah, question.
I think clarity is not simply about language, grammar, and things, but it's also the familiarity of the topics. If I discuss something that maybe our friends in history, I will not easily understand, though they speak perfectly, using the perfect language and so on. But the problem is because I cannot follow their flow of thought because I do not have any schemata or background information. So it makes me perhaps difficult to understand this topic. We are not familiar with the environmental history or the ideas being expressed here in the paper. So what we mean by lack of clarity is not maybe directly related with the use of language,
Not
but
directly, it's
unfamiliar
yeah,
topic.
it's a component. That's right, and I think I like that comment very much because you really need to think about providing the schemata for people. And of course, one way of doing that is to, in the literature review, is to problematize things as a practical problem. And then when you move to the research gap and the research problem, that research problem is going to be not about the practical problem, it's about the knowledge-based problem. There's something we don't know. And that will supply enough. It'll supply enough of a schemata for people to be able to follow at least the introduction. Then, we're not going to get into this because this is a different workshop, but then when you get into the midsections, then you have to continue to develop that schemata for people who are not necessarily experts on your topic. And that's another time. And okay, sorry, Paul. Last presentation. Thank you, guys. You have one to go. Just one more to go. Yeah. Sorry. Get out of here.